everybody. Happy New Year's Eve. Uh, Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind with uh, the one and only Drew Bunning, the one and only Christopher Gates, and me, Ted. The Vikings have pretty much been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. They've got like a miracle that needs to happen next week. They get embarrassed at home tonight by the Green Bay Packers. And I'll tell you what, not a lot of happy people in Minnesota Vikings land tonight.
No.
No, and one of them is apparently Andrew Booth Jr., who they just showed on the thing was apparently picking a fight with Aaron Jones after the game was over. There weren't any punches thrown, but there was some shoving. There was some. I mean, that dude hasn't done anything in 2 years. I don't know what the hell he's pissed off about.
No shit. Shut up. Shut
anyway,
up. Anyway,
let's yeah. Ugh, Jesus.
So, Jason Fienhog says, "Yeah, well, that sucked. Yeah, it absolutely did." Guys, I don't really know where to begin. I mean, we could have debated the merits of starting Jaron Hall. I could see the argument after another 4 interception performance by Nick Mullins last week. Ineffectiveness by Joshua Dobbs before that. Jaron Hall was not the answer. I think it's safe to say he is probably not going to be the quarterback of the future for the Minnesota Vikings. But the Vikings defense, ever since that 3-0 shutout in Las Vegas, has been pretty terrible. Actually, from the fourth quarter of the Bengals game on, I mean, they were good for 3 quarters in Cincinnati. Yep. From the fourth quarter of the Bengals game on, I mean, at least they're consistent. They cannot rush the passer. They can't cover a receiver, nor can they tackle. I mean, it's complimentary football, just not in the way we expect it to be. And it just seems to be getting worse as the season gets farther and farther, guys.
The thing that worries me about tonight is that, you obviously saw the games that took place before this game, and you saw that Pittsburgh beat Seattle. And at this point, you say to yourself, okay, we are back in control of our own destiny for a playoff spot. All we got to do is win. And then you go out there and put up this frickin' performance. I mean, what the hell do you do? I mean, I don't get it. There was no excuse for that. It's terrible. There's really no other way to put it. It's bad.
Drew, we've been watching the Vikings for almost 100 years combined. Chris, you probably got another 35 or 40 years of watching yourself. Here's the thing. It doesn't, since the late 1970s, let's go 1977 NFC Championship game on. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter who the rest of the coaching staff is. It doesn't matter who the GM is. It doesn't matter who the owner is. When the Minnesota Vikings need to show up and play a good game in a big moment, they don't. I mean, they do what they did tonight. They lay an egg, and Drew, I don't get it, man. I would think at least at some point over the last 45 or 50 years, there would have been a small window of 3 or 4 years where they would have just figured it out and won a bunch of games. But it is a consistent theme with this franchise, man.
Right. It I don't know. It's like you expect. We talked before the game, and I'm thinking, and I messaged you, and I said, prime time, Vikings need a big win, must win. Oh, I'm not worried.
And I joked it's in the bag. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what I saw tonight. I don't.
Saw terrible football.
The defense has been playing well all year, and it seemed like they mailed it in. It seemed like they mailed it. That defense was terrible. That's the worst game I've seen the Vikings play in a long time. It's not like it's the Cowboys or the Saints. It's the frickin' Packers, dude. You let them come into your house and beat your ass, because that's what it was on both sides of the ball, Ted Glover.
Yeah, it
ass
was.
beating.
It was.
Packers were better all the way around. Better play calling, better defense, more intensity, more rallying to the ball. They wanted the game more, and the Vikings were just standing there with their thumbs in their ass. So, the Vikings get what they deserve. Nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Chris, here's a question: You think Flores, Jamie Doyle, not Jamie Dahl, Jamie Doyle, still think Flores is a sure shot head coach next year? On X earlier, I said, after the Raiders game, had the Viking season ended after that game, Brian Flores would have been a hot head coaching commodity. I think that longboat has sailed now, Chris.
No, absolutely. I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ago, like he said, he probably would have been a hot candidate. He probably would have gotten, and I don't know, because I think this is something we've talked about before. I don't know how much the fact that, he's currently suing the National Football League would have had to do with him getting coaching interviews and stuff like that. But up to the Raiders game or thereabouts, that might have been something that people might have been willing to overlook. Probably not anymore. I don't think we need to worry about losing Brian Flores next year if we don't want to lose him.
And that said, Drew, I want Brian Flores to stay. I think the Vikings defense has shown a vast improvement over the course of the season compared to last year. But these last 3 games, let's see, what would it be? Cincinnati, Detroit, and now Green Bay. Something is off. And is it injuries? Is it because other teams have figured out the scheme? Finally, after 7 or 8 or after 2 months, whatever the hell it is, I don't know.
Maybe it's because the last month and a half, the defense has been keeping us in games, and the offense have been blowing it. Maybe the defense said, "Fuck it, I'm done trying to hold this team up."
I don't think that's the case. I mean, why would they do that?
I mean, part of it. I mean,
they look completely different tonight, Ted. Completely different from what I've seen the last month. Yeah. They looked like they were slow to the ball, slow motion, no pressure on Love. Short passing game was killing us. It just seemed like this wasn't the defense I saw in the Raider game or the Bronco game or any of those games. I mean, you tell me, it's the same guys playing. They've lost their luster out there tonight. They got their ass whipped on defense tonight. And you tell me, it's the same guys.
Chris?
I'm not sure if this goes for all of the last part of the season here, but over these last 2 weeks, the Vikings have been averaging about 22 minutes of time of possession per game. That's not a recipe for being successful. I mean, your defense is out there. Your defense is out there for 37 or 38 minutes because you can't move the ball on offense, or when you do move the ball on offense, you hand the ball over to the other team and whatnot. And, I can understand, like we said, the defense carried this team for the better part of the season. They really had that stretch in the middle of the season. And even those games that they lost against Denver and Chicago, they had opportunities to win because of the way the defense played. And I think the defense, between injuries and now, not being able to get off the field, or the offense not being able to stay on the field, it's just been a recipe for them to get smoked. And we've seen that. We saw that against Detroit last week, and they forced 2 punts tonight. That's all. The Packers only punted 2 times. And, like I said, the Packers had the ball for damn near 38 minutes. You're not going to win a lot of football games if your offense either can't move the ball or keeps handing it back over to the other team.
Mark Stein had a comment I want to bring up. He said, couldn't really tell if the team quit on KOC or if the Vikings are really just that bad. Skull, y'all. Skull, Mark.
Great comment.
For joining
Great
us.
Comment.
Look, I don't think this team quit. You look at, we're at week 17 of 18. You look at the injuries this team has sustained, and I think it just got to a point where it hit critical mass. Jason again mentions another good comment. They lost DJ Wanham last week. Jordan Hicks missed a good chunk of the season. Obviously, Kirk Cousins has been out since the midway point. TJ Hawkinson I think could have possibly been a difference, or a kind of a, I don't know that would have changed the outcome of the game, but maybe a security blanket for Jaron Hall early in this game to help get him comfortable and maybe get him in a flow. Look,
You're-
man, I don't think this team has quit. I mean, when you're at week 17 and you're playing a roster that is essentially the third quarter of game 3 in the preseason in some respects, and you're still in the freaking playoff hunt, I mean, that says something. I don't know what. But you talk about the offense not being able to hold on to the ball, the defense getting tired. I think it just all kind of came together tonight and hit critical mass. Drew.
Yeah. I mean, your alleged big free agent signing on defense this offseason has shown up for like 2 games and is collecting $13 million for basically doing nothing all year. I never want to see that dude again. I don't care if he is healthy enough to play next week. Tell him to stay home. Whatever. That dude's a slug. And I was hoping against hope that it was going to be a good signing, but no. And like you said, Wanham out. Byron Murphy. I think they missed that dude more than just about anybody tonight.
Yeah.
And
great point.
Yeah, like you said, it eventually all catches up with him. And this is just where it happened to hit the fan, and it was in prime time against your biggest rival at home, and that's the worst possible place for it.
I think Ted's exactly right. I mean, you carry it. The gas tank ran dry tonight, Ted. I mean, there's nothing left. The Viking season is over. Let's turn it over to the people. What are people in the chat saying about next year? What are we going to do, Ted? What are we going to do, Chris?
Well, let's see.
How do the Vikings get better from here? What are the Vikings going to do from here? I'm interested to hear people's comments.
Folks, we want to hear your comments. I'll tell you what. Here's what I think. I think as bad as this season has been injury-wise, the Vikings have a lot of pieces to work with. They've got a very good tackle duo in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, although Darrisaw played like ass tonight. Here's a good comment from RJ. What got overlooked was how much Kirk helped the line and protections at the line of scrimmage before the snap.
Great point.
I mean, when you're Chris or Andrew, you both mentioned this. You can't replace the experience that Kirk Cousins brought as a veteran that's been in the league over 10 years and has seen just about everything defenses throw at you. Jamie Doyle asks, if you were JJ, would you want to stay here? Very good question.
That's something we need to talk about. And I want to get your guys' opinion on that.
Todd Taylor says, I'm throwing the signed Russell Wilson grenade into the chat and running away.
Fuck that guy.
Todd Taylor, if you have ever won a prize from Vikings Reporter Drew and Ted, mail it back. We are revoking any prizes you may have won in the past. Speaking of prizes, folks, hey, before we get going on this, we got about 100, just over 100 folks in the chat room. If you want to be eligible for a prize, just make a comment in the chat, like Todd and Brad and Raymond Hoagland, our friend. Just make a comment, and you'll be entered by Ruby. And we'll spin a wheel at the end of the show.
Let's talk about the Vikings going forward.
Todd's on the wrong side of the velvet rope as it stands right now. He needs to be out the club. Seriously.
Come on, Russell Wilson. What do you guys think about that?
No, absolutely not.
No.
If you're going to let Kirk Cousins go and replace him with Russell Wilson, Jesus, you're not serious.
I'd rather have Ann or Nancy Wilson as the quarterback for the Vikings next year than Russell freaking Wilson. Thank you very much.
Or Flip Wilson, for that matter.
You want Russell Wilson for quarterback? No, never.
Wait. I might consider Nancy Wilson. I kind of like her.
Okay. Here's the thing.
Flip Wilson with Geraldine. Remember
Flip Wilson. Chris Pappas says, time to do a complete rebuild, thinking we're going to be one of the worst teams next year. Just way too many holes all over the place. I disagree. I'm going back to the foundation I think the Vikings have.
Okay.
They've got good tackles in Darrisaw and O'Neill. I think they have a promising young running back in Ty Chandler. Quarterback, we're going to have to talk about. You've got the best wide receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. You have a very good wide receiver backing him up in Jordan Addison. Not sure about TJ Hawkinson's health, but when he comes back, I think he's one of the 2 or 3 best tight ends in football. On the defensive side, I think they need more work. I'd like to re-sign Daniil Hunter. They need a opposite rush end to complement Hunter. Those few games Davenport was in, it kind of looked like a legit pass rush combo. But then DJ Wanham showed out. I like DJ Wanham. He's in a contract here. Will they bring him back? Jordan Hicks, I'd like to see come back. I really like Mekhi Blackman. I really like Cam Bynum and Josh Metellus. Look, man, there is a decent potential of core players here for the Vikings next year. Now they have a lot of questions, but complete rebuild, no.
I don't think you need to do a complete rebuild either. No, you just mentioned all those guys. There's talent there. This is just one of those situations where, between the injuries and everything else, it just all hit the fan at the same time. And we see Ruby, I think, just put in the chat. According to Tankathon, the Vikings are currently sitting at number 12 in the draft order. At this point, number 12.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
12th overall.
Coach Gothorpe, Drew, he says re-sign Kirk to a team-friendly deal, extend JJ, draft Penix in the second round. I assume that's Michael Penix Jr., the current quarterback of the Washington Huskies, who you will be able to watch in the college football playoff mañana against the Texas Longhorns, and then draft best player available in the first round. RJ says, hang on. I just lost it.
Farm to get Drake May.
There we go. Yeah, RJ says I'd sell the farm to get Drake May. I re-sign Kirk Cousins to a 2-year deal. I keep the rest of the offense in check and get extensions to people that need them. On defense, I go young, big, and fast, which is what she said. Happy New Year.
It absolutely was.
Here's what I would do on that, Ted. First off, Kirk Cousins. Let's start with an asterisk because he doesn't give money back. You need to get Kirk Cousins back on the team and the number 1 quarterback if he comes back for a reduced deal. And Kirk Cousins, as we know, has never given money back. He's not going to do any team-friendly things, or he doesn't. He keeps all of his money, which is probably smart on his part. If you can get him on a reduced deal, you bring him back and let the battles ensue below him to see who's going to be the quarterback of the future. That's what I see. Now, if he doesn't come back for some kind of reduced rate, what do you do? And you have to take into what JJ has gone forward saying, without saying, either sign Cousins or I'm leaving. So there's a lot of dynamics involved to this thing, but if you can get Cousins back and get him to reduce his salary a little bit and have the guys under him learn under him, that's kind of where Drew is at right now. That's where I'm at, Ted.
Darren Campbell and both Drew and Chris, I want you to answer this. How realistic is it to get Kirk back at a reduced deal, Drew? 5%?
Probably less. He has never given back. He has never given, even in Washington, he wouldn't give a friendly deal there either. He's never given a team-friendly, city-friendly deal back.
No, he's not. Chris.
And that's where it all sits. That's where it all sits.
On the other hand, I'll play the devil's advocate here in this case with the reduced deal. He's also never been a 36-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles tear.
Yeah.
So, he's not going to go out and get $40 or $45 million a year from some team for the next 2 years. And, other teams are going to be interested in, seeing what he can do, seeing how the Achilles heals and stuff like that and what have you. But, I don't think Cousins is going to cost as much as people are probably going to think he's going to cost. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head what his number is for this year, but like I said, he's coming off the injury. He's on the wrong side of 30 at this point, and he's probably worth more to the Vikings than he is to other teams at this point. So, I think they kind of want to get the relationship to work out between the two of them. But yeah, I think I think the odds of him coming back on a slightly
Did we just lose
deal.
Chris for a minute? Oh, there we go. I think Chris might be in the middle of being beamed down from the USS Enterprise somewhere.
He's in the Matrix, like Neo.
Yeah.
The Matrix
Yeah.
right
there we go.
I'm here now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
What happened, Chris? What happens with JJ though? How do you appease him? Because if you say Cousins isn't coming back, why does he want to stay?
That's a really good question. He obviously likes playing with Kirk. He sets NFL records with Kirk. He's one of the best wide receivers in the league, at least in part because of Kirk Cousins. So it makes sense that he would want the guy to be here at least for a couple more years.
He has also said though, JJ has gone out of his way to praise Kirk Cousins, and I get it. But he has also said, if the Minnesota Vikings want me here, I'm going to be here. I really don't have much say in that because of the way the players' union has allowed the owners to bully them in labor negotiations. They can franchise JJ. JJ can sit out, and it really has no – I mean, he'll end up losing money if he tries to sit out. I think if him and the Vikings can come to an agreement on numbers, Justin Jefferson is going to sign with the Minnesota Vikings. And Drew, you and I have talked about this on our weekly show before about keeping Justin Jefferson in the loop with what their plans are at quarterback. And when you look at Kirk, we have said there are reasons to bring Kirk Cousins back, and there are reasons to move on from Kirk Cousins with the injury history now and his age and everything else. I get it. I'm not saying the Vikings should bring him back. I'm not saying they should let him go. I get that there are two valid arguments there are valid arguments on both sides. But if whatever direction they go in, I think they will have Justin Jefferson on board with before they make that final decision.
Yeah. Go back to that one comment, Michael Penix from Washington, do you just start with him? You go with him and try to convince JJ that this is your guy. This. There's a lot to be said about the dynamics of what's going on. What you have to think of what JJ's saying. You have to take his. I mean, what do you do, Ted? It's a tough spot.
Well, Wilfred Hilger has a good comment here. Stop with the Cousins dream. He'll squeeze hard for everything he can get. If the Vikings don't match his highest offer, he'll pack him and leave. That's not dumb. I absolutely agree with that. Kirk has been a first ballot Hall of Famer in terms of being at the right place at the right time to maximize his value in terms of a contract. He's going to do that again. Now, the going rate for a top quarterback in the NFL is right at $50 million a year, if not a little bit more now. When you look at the deals Joe Burrow's made, and I think Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, all those guys. The Vikings would be stupid to give Kirk Cousins $50 million a year, in my opinion. He's currently making $35 million a year. Christopher, Dan Hanneman says the international impersonation.
We'll work it in when it's appropriate.
All right.
Come on, Chris. It's New Year's, baby.
I know.
And Drew, when I finish, I want to get your opinion. Dan Hanneman asked a great question. You know, I've talked about this offline, not on the show. What's your honest, non-homer opinion on JJ McCarthy? But I will say real quick, Kirk's current contract is $35 million a year. If they can bring him back for like one, maybe I wouldn't even want to go 2 years, like 1 year between $35 and $40 million, I would be okay with that. To draft and then get a quarterback early in the draft and let him sit and watch Kirk play and then just kind of go from there. And I think that would be enough for Justin Jefferson to say, yeah, okay, all right, fine. If you're going to do that, I'm good. Chris, go ahead.
And if we're talking about quarterbacks that are going to go in the draft, I wonder, Justin Jefferson's an LSU guy. I wonder what kind of relationship, if any, he has with Jaden Daniels at this point. And if he has a relationship with Jaden Daniels and he says, that's our guy, or that's my guy, I love Jaden Daniels. Well, you're probably going to, if you lose to Detroit this next week, you're probably going to find your way into the top 10 picks of the draft. You bring Cousins back, and then you find a way, because I think Jaden Daniels is a guy that, could potentially be that guy, particularly if he's already got that relationship with Justin Jefferson. I mean, I'd have to go back and read scouting reports and look at film and whatnot, but I think that's a possibility, because I would guess, being an LSU guy, that Justin Jefferson might already have a relationship with him.
Yeah, that's possible. So, and look, we have. I don't want to debate the merits of every quarterback coming out in the draft, but Drew, I think JJ McCarthy is a worthy discussion, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Drew currently has a Michigan hat and shirt on. He's probably going to watch JJ McCarthy and the Michigan Wolverines play Alabama tomorrow in the Rose Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal. Drew, I know what your answer already is, because you and I have talked about this at length, but give the people your opinion on JJ McCarthy, Michigan quarterback.
JJ McCarthy is first off, he's a gamer. He's a team player. He checks all the boxes with that. JJ McCarthy is a very capable quarterback of running a team in the NFL. But let me tell you, the problems that come with him is the Michigan Wolverines have had, the last 2 years, the best offensive line play in college football. They won the Joe Moore Award 2021, 2022, and they may win it this year. The point being, JJ McCarthy has played behind the best offensive line the last 2 seasons. That goes a long way to like saying what he's all about in the pocket and outside the pocket. JJ McCarthy is a great quarterback, but if he does not improve the clock in his head for getting rid of the football or processing defenses, he's going to wash out. He's going to be just like, I'm telling you, the offensive line has a lot to do with why JJ McCarthy is good. And in the red zone, he's probably one of the worst quarterbacks I've seen for decision making. He's thrown a lot of picks in the end zone. He's thrown a lot of picks down there in the red zone, and he's made a lot of mistakes down in the red zone. So, he
didn't against Ohio State. What's up with that, man?
I think he's languished behind this offensive line play that has been superlative. Ted, the Joe Moore Award is like the best offensive line in football, and he's been behind it the last 2 years. What happens when he gets to the NFL? I watch him. I like his play out of the pocket, but the clock in his head is too slow. If it doesn't get faster, he's going to wash out. And that's why I'm 50-50 on the guy.
Let me ask this. Depending on what site you read, magazine, whatever, website, there's maybe 6, 7, or even 8 quarterbacks that conceivably could go in the first round. Is JJ McCarthy a first-round guy? And if he is, where in the first round would he go? Top half, middle, or back end?
I don't think he's a first-round guy, if you ask me. If you ask me my evaluation of the guy before we do the big draft, Drew and Ted breakdowns of March and February, I'd say he's late second, third-round pick.
Really?
I'm just saying, without that offensive line, he's a different guy. He is. And you're not going to have that. You're not going to have the best offensive line in the NFL. You're not. And watch tomorrow. We play Alabama. When he gets pressure, he's a different guy.
Roll Tide.
No, fuck the Tide. You asked for my honest opinion. I'm not a homer. I'm calling it like I see it. I think that if you can get McCarthy in the third round, you're getting a steal there. I think he can be something, but there's no quarterback in this draft that's going to come in like Andrew Luck or John Elway and take your team to the different height. There isn't. None of these quarterbacks are going to take your team, take the Vikings to the next level. They're not.
I don't think so either, Chris. But is there a guy that you think that if he sits for a year or half a year in case another injury happens or whatever, is there a guy that you are looking at right now that you think could come in and maybe pick up where Kirk left off in terms of production?
I mean, I mentioned Daniels already. I know he's not the same type of quarterback as Cousins is, but I think he could benefit from sitting behind Cousins for a year or two. I don't know if you'd look at a guy like one of the other guys you're going to see in the college football playoff tomorrow in Quinn Ewers out of Texas. He might be somebody to potentially keep an eye on as well. But there's a lot of time in the pre-draft process to go through all these picks and whatnot, and guys are going to rise, guys are going to fall like they do every year. I mean, maybe there's like someone like Bo Nix. We mentioned Michael Penix already, and so forth. But yeah, I don't like Bo Nix either. But Jaden Daniels is probably going to be my pound the table guy for the Vikings at quarterback for this year. I don't know if he's gonna. I don't know if the Vikings are in the bottom half of the top 10. I don't know if he makes it that far. They might have to move up for him a little bit if they want him. But like I said, between his ability and the potential Justin Jefferson connection, I think that would potentially work out for the Vikings.
So let's say, while Drew's not here, we can talk about him all we want, and he won't know anything, and because Ruby won't say anything about it. Well, she might. Anyways, so let's say the Vikings bring Kirk Cousins back on a 1 or 2 year deal.
Yep.
Just it's hypothetically speaking. Now, do you think quarterback is still something the Vikings should get in the first round, or do you think they could go elsewhere and look at QB in the second round?
No, I think quarterback in the first round would absolutely be something that you would do if Cousins comes back. I mean, like you said, have a guy carrying Kirk Cousins' clubs for a couple of years or a year and let him take over them. But, the Vikings, I believe the Vikings, I think you mentioned this on social media a while back, have only drafted 4 quarterbacks in the first round in team history. And they're at about 50% on those because they had Tommy Kramer and Dante Culpepper, and then they followed that up with Christian Ponder and Teddy Bridgewater. And obviously the Bridgewater thing we can't put up entirely to his ability because, his leg damn near fell off and that sort of thing. But, the Vikings haven't taken a lot of chances on first-round quarterbacks over the years. And, if you want to have, more often than not, if you want the guy that's going to be the long-term answer at the position, that's where you have to find them. And, if the Vikings have an opportunity to get a guy somewhere in the top 10, if that's where they end up picking, I think they should go for it.
The question I asked is just hypothetically, the Vikings bring back Kirk Cousins for 1 or even 2 years.
Right.
Does quarterback still first of all, do you think quarterback is a priority? They should get a guy in the first round. And if they bring Kirk back, does that change your opinion on that or not?
Depending always how the board falls, I think they should get a quarterback early. If they believe in that's the guy, then go get him, and he can learn behind Kirk Cousins. That I want Kirk Cousins to come back, Ted. I think he's got one more shot. The Viking, if anything, he can get the guys under him to learn more about how to play quarterback. I mean, the Vikings need a nose tackle. They need somebody in the middle that can disrupt things. They haven't had that in a long time, and they need that.
I agree.
And usually with nose tackles, if you don't take the first or second round guy, you're getting a wash. You're not getting a Kinlaw, you're not Derek Brown, all those guys that go in the first round. The Vikings need that, and I think there's going to be the best quarterback in this draft isn't going to be drafted early, Ted. It's going to be drafted in the second or third or fourth round. That's what I think.
I don't think so. Generally quarterbacks, if they're going to be successful in the NFL, they're drafted in the first round. I mean, they just are.
No, normally, but
normally, yeah.
You tell me you go look at Drake May North Carolina. Go
Mhm.
look. Chris Gates, punch up the North Carolina quarterbacks taken in the first round over the last 30 years.
You mean like Mitch Trubisky? Let's see.
Every single one of them, Field Yates, whatever Yates, they're all losers.
I mean, they kind of have the stigma. I don't know if it's quite although C.J. Stroud is doing something about the Ohio State quarterback kind of stigma at this point. But, there are some schools that just have that, I guess. I mean, you bring up North Carolina, they're one of them. Until C.J. Stroud came along, Ohio State was kind of one of those.
Well,
if Bryce Young doesn't get it together, Alabama's going to be one of those schools before too much longer here. But
give
I
me
can
the guys
understand.
you guys believe in. Who do you like coming in this draft, Ted Glover? Who do you like?
I'm not smart enough to give an opinion on that yet. I honestly don't know. I mean, there are a ton of guys. Like if you put a gun to my head and say pick a guy right now, I would say Jaden Daniels out of LSU, because he reminds me a lot of the good 2 weeks that Josh Dobbs had with the Vikings, with the Atlanta game and the New Orleans game. I mean, that running ability, mixed in with an accurate, a good arm and an accurate arm, is just tantalizing to me. But does that translate to the NFL? I mean, I don't know.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I want to throw out a couple of things from the post game press conference here from the Vikings. Jaron Hall was pretty honest, and when the media asked him about him being benched, he literally said, "If I was the coach, I'd make the same decision." So he was pretty honest about that. And Kevin O'Connell has said that all potential options are on the table for the Week 18 game at Detroit for the quarterback position. So Kevin O'Connell is going to suit up and take a few snaps at quarterback, I think, in Week 18 at Ford Field, because at this point, what the hell else do we have to lose at this point?
Let me say something about Jaron Hall. Sometimes you get in these meetings, and you get with the coaches, Ted and Chris, and they tell you can't turn the ball over. Don't turn it over. Be careful where you throw it. Be careful with the ball in the pocket. Be careful with the edge rushers coming in. Protect the ball. Protect the ball. Be careful where you throw it. You can't turn the ball over with turnover, with interceptions. You can't. And all the time, the guy is thinking, when he's out there, this is what they've been telling me. And the whole time, you're not focusing on what the guy does best. You're not letting him be what he does best. You got him so worried about turnovers that you can't let him be the quarterback that he has the capability of being. Sometimes that's the truth. You talk to the guy so much about turnovers, where that means you're just limiting him on what he is as a quarterback. Because this is not Jaron Hall at BYU at all. Go back and look at this BYU tape. Go back and look at it. It isn't what. This is not the quarterback he was at BYU. He was like amazing.
What amazing quarterback. Go ahead, Chris.
It's the Nuke Lelouch syndrome. Don't think, just pitch. Don't think, just go out there and do things. Just play your game. And what? Drew's right. You can get overcoached, especially if you're a young guy like this. Like, don't do this, don't do that. Look for this guy, do this, blah blah. Yeah, he's probably got too much going on in his brain at one time, because that he's being overcoached, and that'll happen.
So, what conference did the Mormon magician play at while at BYU? What conference? Mountain West?
Yep, Mountain West.
Mountain West. So there is a plethora of talent in the Mountain West. I'm not here to disparage the Mountain West.
Come on, Ted. Come on.
But there is a reason Jaron Hall was a 5th round pick. I mean, like, look, Ty Detmer put up huge numbers at BYU. I mean, like, look, I understood the decision to go to Jaron Hall, because you cannot turn the ball over as much as an NFL quarterback does and have success, like Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs did. but it was painfully obvious that, to me at least, that Jaron Hall was like a toddler thrown into the deep end of the pool and was quickly drowning unless somebody went in and saved him. And I'm glad they went to Mullins at halftime. I'm glad they gave Hall the shot, but I don't think he was overcoached. I don't think you could coach the guy enough to be successful in the NFL. I mean, I don't know. He made a couple terrible throws. I mean, he had a throw in the second quarter that was a Billy Kilmer special, man. I hadn't seen a quarterback make that throw since 1974, for God's sake.
Was that the one where he overshot Addison by like 10 yards?
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Cap's balls looked like that, but at least they fell into the arms of the receivers, for God's sakes.
Ted, I made a post in the Gallahorn about you got to get Hall out of there if you want to have a chance to win this game. I did.
Yeah.
And people started ripping me, saying, Drew, you don't know what you're talking about. We got to, and I caught a bunch of heat for that. But I said, if you want to win this game, you got a guy that gives you no chance to win. Hall, no chance to win. You got to at least put in a guy that gives you 2% chance to win. Put in somebody that he's not going to win the game for you. And you got the playoffs on the line. Put somebody else in. People unloaded on me. They were unloading on me, saying you don't know anything, whatever.
Here's another question that and this has been brought up a fair amount about quarterback of the future, and it was by Benjamin Austin. He said, "Do you trust this front office to identify a quarterback of the future in this draft, Chris?"
Quarterback of the future, man. I really have no idea at this point. Like I said, I gotta get better prepared for that kind of thing. But yeah.
So do you trust the front office to pick whoever it's going to be?
I think I do, actually. Yeah, I mean, people are going to go off on the front office. I mean, God knows Vikings Twitter bitches about Kyle Hamilton like endlessly every freaking week because why not? But if you want to crap all over the things that I mean, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell have done some bad things. Sure, there was the trade that wind up not looking super great. There's the Davenport signing that hasn't been what it should have been. But they've made a lot of really solid moves too. And the people who are suggesting that these two guys need to be fired already can pound sand. They're not going anywhere. At least not this next year. Probably not the year after that either. But yeah, I do trust these guys to get it right finally. So yeah, I think if they get an opportunity to get their guy, they're going to go out and get their guy, and I think that guy's going to be successful ultimately.
The eminently coiffed and perpetual brown noser Tyler Forness has entered the chat. Vikings first and Skull. Hi guys, go Michigan Forno. Tyler, you're dead to me. Go get a haircut, you hippie.
No, Tyler knows what's going on. He knows. Go blue, Ted. Go blue.
Drew, do you trust this front office to pick the quarterback of the future? Whoever it is they pick. Hey, don't you don't have to give me a guy, but do you trust them in their process to pick a guy that they think is going to be the franchise quarterback for the Vikings?
No.
Okay. Why?
Do you want me? Because first off, picking a quarterback to be your NFL franchise guy is impossible. Let's put it. They have to hit something that I think they are going to take a guy early, Ted, but it's going to be like what do they want to get? It's a tough call because they have other needs on the team. They need nose tackle. They need running back. They need a bunch of guys. So
they do.
If you pick, they do, in my opinion. And if you pick the wrong quarterback, you're way behind the 8 ball. You're way behind it. So I don't trust them to pick the right guy. I expect them to pick a guy. If they pick I want them to take somebody in the second and third round because some of these guys are going to fall. And I think that's what do you guys want? What do you guys want to address first with the Vikings?
Quarterback.
What do you see?
Quarterback. And I want them, and I trust them. People say, well, do you trust Zimmer or do you trust this front office to pick the quarterback of the future? I trust them a hell of a lot more than I trust Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman. I trust them a hell of a lot more than I trusted Leslie Frazier and Rick Spielman. I trust them a hell of a lot more than Brad Childress and that goofy ass fucking triangle of authority.
Rhombus of reason or whatever the hell it was called.
Rhombus of retardation, whatever the hell it was called. Look, Kevin O'Connell has been a quarterback in the NFL, and Dan Hanman said, what has Kevin O'Connell improved on in year 2? Look, it's the Vikings went 13-4 last year. He's had to deal with a crap ton of injuries that have kept and it still kept the Vikings in the playoff hunt. When after Kirk Cousins went down, the Vikings had just gotten to 500 and were essentially playing with house money for the rest of the season. I would trust him to evaluate. I trust their evaluation process and scouting process more than I trust what the previous regimes have done. And if you look now after last draft, when they finally got their scouts in, that draft class already looks to be paying a lot more dividends than his first class, where they had to deal with Zimmer and Spielman scouts. And we've kind of gone over this and whatever. But yeah, I do. I think this team is set up for long-term success. They're getting a lot of extra cap space this year, which is going to open up even more in the next couple of years. And I think they're going to be able to find a guy and pick a guy and build around him and extend Jefferson and extend Darisaw and extend the guys they need to keep that core group of guys together. Like, admittedly, Rick Spielman did a very good job of for 3 or 4 years through from 2011-ish, whatever, through 2016, 2017.
Dave Stefano, what up, dog?
And this is something that Drew mentioned a little bit ago, and I don't know if Drew's leaving. So I don't know if you guys have seen the John Boy's history of the Minnesota Vikings, that 7-part epic he put together.
Yeah,
which is awesome. If you're a Vikings fan, you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to sit down and watch it. But one of the themes that he kind of hits on in that series is that the Vikings have obviously never been good enough to win the whole thing, but they've never really had a stretch where they've been bad enough to take a swing at like a top quarterback with one of the top picks in the draft. I mean, the last time they had like a really super high pick was, I think it was 2012 when they had the 3rd overall pick, and that was the Andrew Luck RG3 year, and those guys went 1 and 2. But the Vikings have never really had an opportunity to take a quarterback in like the top 5 or 6 picks. I think Ponder was a number 11 pick. I think Culpepper was a number 11 pick. And I think that's basically the highest they've ever drafted a quarterback. So if you take a swing at one of these top quarterbacks, there's a chance you're going to end up, behind a little bit if they don't work out. But if they do hit, then you're set for a number of years, and you can actually, it would be uncharted territory for the Vikings because, they haven't had that guy for, 10, 12 years or whatever. I mean, the closest thing I've seen in my lifetime was Culpepper until he got his knee shredded in Carolina and whatnot. But, if they had an opportunity to take a quarterback, it's somewhere in the top 10 or around the top 10, I think that would be something they would have to jump on just to see if they could have that guy for the longer term. Because if you hit there, then you have that's one thing you don't have to worry about for a while. You can worry about other things once you've hit that.
So here's the thing, and we're talking about this draft, and RJ and getting their quarterback of the future, and RJ comments, it depends on how aggressive they're going to be. If they're willing to be aggressive and go up, I want them to go after a quarterback. If they're going to sit back and try to be cute and move around, then I would definitely look at other positions. So, Drew, let me ask you this. Do you favor – and Chris, I think you said earlier the Vikings are slated to pick 11th right now?
They're at 12 right now.
12, okay. And that could move a spot or two depending on whether they win or lose next week and what happens.
If they lose on Sunday, I think the best they can get themselves up to is like 8 or 9.
Okay, so let's just say for the sake of argument the Vikings are sitting at 10. just as an even number. Drew, would you be willing to support a trade up to 5 or 6 to get a quarterback?
No.
Chris, would you?
I probably would. I would be.
Okay.
Because you're not trading up to 1 or 2 overall and giving up a king's ransom and whatnot. If you want to move up to 5 or 6, you might have to give up a little bit, but they can facilitate that, I think.
I haven't done my full breakdown, Ted, but there's a bunch of quarterbacks in here for this draft who all look the same to me. I mean, to trade up, you got to have somebody that wow, that would got the wow factor. I don't see any that I would trade up for.
Okay, here's the thing. Bob M., and we talked about Justin Jefferson. Let's just say he doesn't want to stay. Let's say he wants to go. If JJ wants to leave, let him go for 2 firsts. I think if it comes to a point where Justin Jefferson says, "Look, I don't agree with the direction you're going at in who you are in quarterback. I don't agree with what your plans are, and I would like to go somewhere where I feel I have the best chance to succeed with a quarterback that is already established in this league." I mean, you could get. I mean, the Dolphins gave up a ton for Tyreek Hill, and the Vikings could get a pretty good deal for Justin Jefferson. And that would give them enough ammo to move up to, Vikings first and skull says you'll have to get to 3 for one of the top 2 guys. I have no idea who the top 2 guys are. I'm sure they say Caleb Williams and somebody else. I don't know about
Caleb
that.
Williams and Drake May.
Yeah,
if the Vikings don't re-sign Cousins, JJ's leaving.
I don't think he is. I'm not. If the Vikings don't want him to leave, he won't.
No.
They'll franchise him and then sign him to an extension until they'll do the Don Corleone. I'm going to give him an offer he can't refuse because he literally can't refuse it. He can't.
Well, then you have an unhappy player playing for you. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, Ted.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're getting a lot of feedback on this tonight because I really wanted to know where people stand because the season's pretty much over, Ted, and we're looking to next year. What's going to happen next year?
Well, it's too early to tell. They've got to figure out some contracts with Harrison Smith, who I think is gone.
Baker Mayfield.
Fading says Baker Mayfield is a free agent after the season.
Come on, get him out of here.
No.
He doesn't get a prize.
No.
I don't want Russell Wilson either. Chris Gates, what do you think of Russell Wilson, Chris Gates?
No, hell no. There's no reason. There's no reason you would sign Russell Wilson over Kirk Cousins. None. Zero. No. Nada.
I think there would be a lot of people looking to sell season tickets if the Vikings, not if the Vikings get rid of Kirk Cousins, but if the Vikings got rid of Kirk Cousins and decided on Russell Wilson as their stopgap guy. That would just give me a lot of Donovan McNabb in 2011 vibes. Man, I don't want it. Don't want it.
Absolutely not.
Dan Hanneman signed Jake Browning.
No.
I think he proved today against the Chiefs why the Vikings cut him. But that's
so. Are you guys leaning Kirk Cousins? Because I kind of am right now. I'm kind of
at
leaning.
this point, yeah.
Well, somebody said, Ted, if something about where is it?
If I was probably looking to trade Watson, every massage therapist in the Twin Cities would have to go into hiding.
Bob M said, Ted, if you think Kirk will take a team-friendly deal, I have some swampland to sell you. I don't think between 35 to 40 million is a team-friendly deal. I think it's market value for a guy that's now 36, that's coming off a season-ending injury that may potentially be career-threatening. Now, Kirk Cousins is taking care of himself historically better than most guys in the league. But look, it's a significant injury. An Achilles heel is a significant injury, regardless of the position you play. And so I don't think a salary between 35 and 40 million is a team-friendly deal. Now, maybe Kirk does, and that's a whole nother argument. But do I want Kirk back? I would be okay with him coming back for a year if they get a quarterback to develop under Kirk. But I don't think giving him a 3-year deal at $40 to $50 million a year is a good idea. I just don't. Not if Kirk was 26 and not 36, that'd be a great idea. But he's not. He's 36 and he's got some health issues now.
Right. No, I agree.
So, anyways, that's just me. But I'm a dope, so
I don't. Let's talk about where the Vikings after 17 weeks. Where do the Vikings need to address their team? I mean,
well,
we know
we've
the
kind of hit it.
quarterback thing. We've talked about the quarterback thing, but what are the positions the Vikings?
Yeah, but I mean, they got a bunch of stuff they got to figure out on defense. They've got a decent core group of guys on offense, but they got a lot of issues they need to talk about or discuss, and linebacker is one of them. Cornerback is another. Is Byron Murphy going to come back? Caleb Evans looks to be regressing. Mekhi Blackman looks pretty good. Safety looks pretty decent, but they need depth there. Linebackers, they need depth there. They need, Drew, you talked about it earlier, they need a nose tackle. I think the offensive line is okay. I like Ty Chandler as a running back, but they need depth there. I mean, they've got Luft, our buddy Dave says they need pass rushers. Other than quarterback, I think that's the number one thing they've got to address in the offseason.
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yes. How much? No pressure tonight at all.
Nope. And especially if Danielle Hunter walks in the off season, which is a distinct possibility, unfortunately.
It's a great point by Dave. Great point.
Yeah. Doc Proto says, I don't think any other positions matter until we get the quarterback figured out. I agree to a point. But you can get by. I mean, look, the 2017 Vikings were a perfect example of that. You can get by with a kind of a journeyman guy in Case Keenum if you have a really good defense. And tonight, the Vikings defense just got freaking exposed, man. They've got to get pass rushers. They've got to put pressure on the quarterback, and you cannot have scrub receivers like the Packers have being more wide open than 1990s Jenna Jameson when the director says action. You just can't. You cannot. You just can't.
That one where she wore the fireman's hat?
I mean,
not that I've seen it. I haven't seen it.
I mean, the coverage breakdowns were terrible tonight, and it's just getting worse. And they need experience and talent in the secondary. They just do.
Somebody has figured out Brian Flores from the short to intermediate pass routes, Ted. It started with Jake Browning in Cincinnati, and it's carried on till tonight.
Toons' Todd Taylor says, give yourself a prize. I don't know. I deserve to prize that. I don't know.
The short passing game has just killed us the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. All right, Ruby, are you there? Can you hear us? Are you ready to spin the wheel of destiny for a prize tonight?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yep. Okay.
Happy New Year, Ruby.
Thank you. All right, let me get the wheel up.
What is New Year's?
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Sweet, dude.
Dan Hanneman, all right. Good deal.
All right.
Dan, you know the deal. Get a hold of Ruby at VikingsReport@gmail.com. Folks, it's getting close to New Year's. We want to get you out of here. We're gonna stay until midnight, but I'm fading fast. I gotta get the hell out of here. And I don't even think I'll see the New Year in. Before we let you go, though, Chris Gates, give us a New Year's resolution for 2024 for the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh God, I don't even know. I mean, this team, man, I have no idea. They need to resolve to find their quarterback going forward. Kirk Cousins might be the quarterback of the present, but they need to resolve to find something beyond that. And yeah, like Doc Proto said, that's the big one. Once they get that figured out, everything else just kind of works a little bit better, I think. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just coming back and doing this with you guys, every week and getting ready for the draft and whatnot. And yeah, I think that's about the best resolution the Vikings could have.
No Dusty Rhodes impersonation?
No, I can't pull it off right now. Sorry. Maybe next week.
All right.
And that is what she said. But anyway.
Drew, give me one New Year's resolution for the Minnesota Vikings for 2024.
Hurry up and win, because I'm getting old. I'm going to die. I just, it's tough every year. I hope we can regroup and have a good draft, and we move on to next year, Ted. Right now, I'm thinking Rose Bowl. Can you blame me?
No.
That's where my mind is right now.
No, I can't.
Blue!
All right. My New Year's resolution for the Vikings is to win the Super Bowl, just one before I die. Folks, for those of you that have joined us on these live broadcasts and watched our show throughout the year, thanks so much. We hope your 2023 has been more productive and fruitful than the one the Minnesota Vikings gave us. We hope your 2024 is filled with love, joy, and happiness. But you're a Vikings fan, so we'll probably be filled with a fair amount of pain and agony. But that's the way it goes. For all of us here at Vikings Report, for Chris, for Drew, for Ruby, I'm Ted. Happy New Year's, everybody. Have a joyous and wonderful 2024. And roll Tide!
Yeah. What? Shut up! Shut up!